Hi, my name is Yoon, and today I'm going to talk about an app I made called Tactician's Calculator. You can get it on the Microsoft App Store for free. And today I'm just going to talk about what the app is, how to use it, and sort of what's going on with it. So basically, it's a damage calculator. As you can see on the board or on the page, you have 12 unit slots. You click on the edit button to basically change it however you want. You can choose augments, and depending on what you put in, you can like see the traits that show up on the left here. So I have Zaya, I'm gonna put in Zaya or Khan. And the power up list that each unit has is pretty much specific to each unit, and so Rakan's list is different than Zaya's list. And everything sort of like positional effects work the way you expect them to work. So if you put like best friends, for example, best friends will work when it's positioned like this or like this, but it won't work if they're separated. Other positional effects, they should all work the way that it actually works in the game. For example, like fusion dance, they have to be, well, for specifically for fusion dance, actually, the unit has to be immediately behind on the right. So if we can't have fusion dance, like this would not work, this would work. If the unit is in the back row, or in the very last row, if we can't have fusion dance, it's the unit to the top left. So this won't work, but this will work. Hopefully that was clear. So on the board is where you change the units, you can change their items, you can change the augments, and you can set up positional effects however you see fit. The app is pretty much running a simulation depending on all the stuff you give it on this page and in the fight settings. And what happens is that it's assuming sort of like ideal conditions where units are hitting a target dummy. They're never getting stunned. They never have to change targets. They're just constantly auto-attacking and casting whenever they have mana and stuff like that. But it also means that for the purposes of this app, that it doesn't matter where the melee units are, in a sense. So like a melee unit could be here, and it's not, Rakan doesn't have to move. So I guess the point of the board is to resolve traits, is to resolve positional effects, but in terms of like, the simulation is not ever assuming units are moving or changing targets. So they're never wasting time, basically. So that's the board. So more ways you can change the simulation is you can change all the different settings here. So on the top left, you see there's target dummy resistances. So if I change this to like, by default 100, but if you change it to whatever, basically every unit on the board is hitting a 500 armor target. And you can also just change the units here. The unit settings and the power-up settings, they're basically just unit specific. And if you hover over the settings, you can see what they affect. So basically, if you have a setting that is sort of irrelevant, so if you don't have any power up that doesn't care about takedowns, changing this number is not going to do anything. Same thing for like a monster level and Kaisa stacks. For example, like if you set these to like 999, it's not doing anything except for the units that actually care, like Kaisa for Kaisa AD stacks and Kog'Maw for monster level, for example. So I guess a quick demonstration. So let's just say set this 30. Zaya is keeping track of her own settings, and Rakan is keeping track of his own settings. But in terms of the like the board-wide settings, like if I set the current stage to 5, they share the settings. Hopefully that made sense. You can play around with it. You can hover over it to see what it affects and stuff like that. And after you do all that setup, you can go to this page it's the stats page, where on the left it's showing you two different panels on the left. The top one being the stats after combat, and the reason why I've separated this with the stats before combat or on combat start is that there are scaling effects like Archangels, Kraken, Rageblade, and Titans. And basically, it'll show you all the stats after it resolves all the combat, like mid combat effects like scaling, and you can see that. And I'll give a demonstration of how you could of how that looks like soon. But let's finish this page up. So here in the middle panel here, you can see the stats during the like basically during combat, and then on the right you see the stats after combat, which is just 30 seconds, and you can see the time here, and you can change the time for the middle one. So you can set this to 18, and it'll change. Now you might be wondering, okay, I set it to 18, but it's showing 19. And the reason for that, and also on the right it says 30.69 instead of 30, and the reason for that is the simulator is basically runs on different types of events. So I have a wind up event, a wind down event, the two of which combine into an auto attack event, and then I have a cast event, which is when units just cast their spell. And what's happening is that when you set a time, when you give it a time, most likely the time is in the middle of an event, like an auto attack event, for example. And so if a unit has very slow auto attack time, their auto attack event is gonna take a little longer to finish. And so at this 18-second mark, Rakan is in the middle of an auto attack event, most likely. And so what will happen is that it will resolve that event first, calculate the damage, do whatever it needs to do, and then it'll like record the damage. So let's say you change this to like 5 seconds. That's like an example of like what happens, and you can see like he didn't cast his spell, so he's not doing any magic damage here. And also here you can hover over. This is the only thing I've implemented in terms of hovering over this and AD, but AD is unfinished. I've only done AD for the items. I mean, I can show you what that looks like soon, but basically if you hover over this, it'll show you at every instance of cast damage. And to demonstrate how that could, so when what I just showed you to Rakan just had 40 damage each time. If you go to Xayah, 11 damage. And the way this is tracking it is Xayah is auto attack based, and so it just shows you every time she auto attacks during her spell, it collects that data. But to show you that certain effects do affect it. Wow, what a sentence. So here I put in Ezreal and Jace, and Jace's ability. Let's just do this for best friends, I guess. But Jace's ability will remove a flat amount of armor from the target, and you can see that not only did this number change, but now in the middle of the simulation, because the armor is going down in the middle of the simulation, she's starting to do more damage over time. And this also works like Even Shroud, and let's do Kraken. And so you go here, and she's doing more damage over time because I added Kraken, and I also added a Source of Sunder. And the way that Sunder interacts with flat reduction from unit abilities like Jace, Duelist Lee Sin, Syndra, is that first the flat reduction applies, and then the percentage reduction applies. And so basically how I do that is I just I preserve this original number And so whenever a flat reduction is applied, I do the flat reduction on this like master number if that makes any sense, and then I apply the percentage effect afterwards, which gets us 217.7. Let's see what else is there. So that's sort of how you could, after you set it up, you can go into stats and you can see all these different numbers. And you can change the simulation time to choose when, maybe you want to see how much damage someone does at like 8 seconds or something. Maybe you need to do a certain amount of damage at 8 seconds, and so you can like play around with different items and different setups and see, okay, how much burst damage can I do in 8 seconds or something like that. Or maybe you just have like a full scathing comp and you only care about, maybe you slap Gunblade on and then you can see like, okay, how much damage they do in the full 30 seconds. And another thing you could do to help you figure out those things is the last page I have here, which is the item comparison page, and it's doing exactly what it sounds like. It's basically running the simulation, and if it wasn't clear, basically when you go to this page, it's running a simulation when this page opens. But on this page, it's running a simulation with the same conditions on the board and settings, with the only difference being the items. So it basically does a simulation where only slot 1 changes to Flicker Blades, for example, right? So let's go to Zaya. And we set, what was Zaya's time? 5 seconds? Whatever, it doesn't matter. So basically there's 2 modes here. You can look at the item DPS changes dependent on the simulation time. Or you could also just do this, which is the full 30 seconds. And it is sort of interesting to me that Flicker Blades is still the best item here. Did I put something on? Fan Service and Kraken Slayer. So it's kind of interesting to me that although Flicker Blades is a scaling item, for some reason at 5 seconds it's still the best item. So hey, Flicker Blades is it's a great item on Zaya apparently. And you can see here, like, for example, I had Kraken a slot 1. So let's say you want to see, okay, what are the other 2 items I can make that are good. So let's actually set this to something more realistic. Like, I don't know, maybe you care about, maybe you expect the fight to last 18 seconds. And I'm going to tick this. Oh, this is Rakan. Let's set this to... Oh, yeah, that's... Okay, Zaya was not set to 5. She was set to 15. That's what Flicker... Okay, wait, let's actually go back. Let's set this to 5 and let's go back. Yeah, Flicker Blades is not here. Okay. that tracks. That tracks. Okay. Okay, so... but what I want to do was change the simulation time, and I'm gonna tick this because I want to see how much... I want to see, like, Giant Slayer at its full potential in the list. So if we go here, and we see slot 1, remember, is Kraken. And on slot 2 and slot 3, it really likes Giant Slayer. It really likes Rageblade, Striker's Flail. So let's say I put in Giant Slayer. And so let's just say, like, you have a setup with fan service, and you want to see what the next best item is. You can use this page to sort of determine what that is. It really likes Giant Slayer as the last item, and Giant Slayer did get buffed, so that is what it is. But let's say you don't have the item economy to make another Giant Slayer. You can look at the other next items to determine what's good and what's bad. So that's kind of how you use the app. I guess as like another demonstration, let me try to build a board that you might actually have with Zaya and Rakan. So let's say you wanted like double trouble, and I think this is a pretty typical double trouble board. Oh yeah, it has to be Zaya 3. And another important note to make here is that when you have units of the same name, so yeah, I have 2 Rakans and 2 Zayas, and you want to know how to differentiate them in the settings, just click on edit and you can see that, okay, the Xayah that I care about, that's going to like where I want to like, change her settings or check her like items, it's unit 12. And for Rakan, it's unit 6. So if I go to stats here, there's a unit 12 Xayah and a unit 4 Xayah. So that's how you kind of know who's who. And so here, let's just look at the stats a little bit and just kind of like visually verify that what's going on here. Xayah is getting a lot of AD from Double Trouble. That's like 33. She's getting like, I don't know what the exact number for fan service is, but she's getting AD from fan service. She's getting AD from her items. She's getting AD from Double Trouble, among other things. And so you can look at this, play with this, and kind of verify the numbers for yourself. But currently, so what are her items right now? It's Kraken and Giant Slayer. And she's doing around 10k damage. And maybe you want to see, okay, what is the next best item? And I set the simulation up to 18 seconds, and it looks like another Giant Slayer, Rage Blade, red buff, stuff like that. So you can look at this, and honestly, the differences between these items are not that crazy. It's like outside of like even Quicksilver, the new Quicksilver is doing a decent amount, and so I guess it's also a good place to note that I don't know if I've said this already, but the app is updated to 15.4, and so this is the new Quicksilver. So let's say my item economy is only allowing me to make a Quicksilver. Yeah, there we go. She's doing 13k damage. She's doing, her spell damage is not doing as much as you'd expect, and I guess I can show how to change that. She's doing a lot of magic damage, mostly because the target dummy has lower MR. So let's just set this to 500 as well, and that like went down drastically. So you can go over to cast here. You can see like how much it, and this isn't tracking the auto attack damage. It's only tracking the bonus spell damage from her ability on that's applying on each auto attack. So that's the only thing it's tracking. I thought that if I would include attacks, like each attack, it's just too much. Like for example here, she's doing 70 auto attacks. There's no way to display that in a way that makes any sense. So I decided, okay, I'll only show the casts for now. And I didn't mention, okay, so some units do have like AoE effects. Maybe they hit units in a hex around their target, or maybe they just target the 2 nearest enemies or something. So in order to incorporate that, I did add this extra target settings where, for example, Xayah hits 2 nearby enemies when she auto attacks, up doing basically the same amount of like spell damage to them. And by default, if you have this at 0, it's as if you're hitting a single target, and each one you increase this by, it's by 1. And I did restrict it in the sense that like Xayah's ability only can hit 2 extra units. So I coded that in. So like for example, if you set, let's first set this to 2. She's doing significantly more spell damage. I mean, she's doing a lot more because she's hitting 2 extra targets. So for here, it's 2/2/2 on the first auto attack. So if I set this to something ridiculous like 10, it doesn't change. It's a unit's AoE ability. I made it so that it restricts it in a way that makes sense. So Xayah's spell specifically says she only hits 2 nearby enemies, and so no matter what big number you put this in, it's restricted by that. So that kind of covers the gist of how the app works. Hopefully I demonstrated what the app is capable of doing. There's a lot of topics that I didn't cover, so if you want to ask me about how something works, if you want to give some feedback, criticism, maybe you want to report something that maybe you think is a bug, you can hit me up on my socials. I'm more than happy to respond or interact with anyone who wants to talk about my app. And again, you can download this on the Microsoft App Store. It's free. I update it frequently. I try to, if there's like B patches or patches, I try to update that as soon as possible. So I know this video is already long, so thanks for watching. If you made it all the way here in the end, check out the app. It's free. I think it's cool. Maybe you could try it out and see for yourself. All right, thanks. Bye bye.